Out for Blood is the debut full length from Shadows, and Shadows is a not a solo project, but more or less a project from a fellow a lot of people will know as Chris Profaner from Apostasy, a Chilean or a thrash metal band who have been around since the late 80s. Once that band had basically taken a hiatus, the fellow took the moniker John Shades and began working on this project more or less full time. And there were live things to finish with Apostasy, and it's become more of a studio group since 2021. And the focus is now on Shadows, which is I suppose his focus on Merciful Fate style heavy metal, which he mentions there is some influence from everything from the earliest records from Motley Crue, as well as more prominently Ozzy's early solo work. So definitely think early 80s, 1983, 82 feeling, but also anyone who listens to heavy music today will recognize this music as tuneful, sort of Merciful Fate influenced sound, which is also going to get a lot of comparison to Ghost, especially the opus eponymous era of that band, which was certainly very different and much more 70s in its affect. And it's an easy comparison, but it estranges itself the more you go back and listen to similar recordings in this style. This is much more aggressive in a lot of ways. It's more tuneful in other ways, and maybe simpler in its effect, but has a little bit more of maybe a little bit of a guitar worship feeling to it sometimes, but also a gloomier narrative, which is focused on sort of a Jack the Ripper kind of idea. So instead of going on about it, because there isn't much to say, I would say let's just check out a song, and you'll get a sense of what this record is all about right away. So like the Randy Rhoads era of Ozzy Osbourne, the maybe the late 70s feeling of Alice Cooper in some sense. There's sort of a structure to a lot of these songs that has certainly been tightened up to maybe more of a speed metal era push, but this is still using some of the theatrics of early 80s metal to successfully write catchy and fairly succinct songs, which are mostly centered around the riff and a vocal melody or two. And it's pretty straightforward in that sense. It is going to appeal to fans of weird hard rock as well as like evil heavy metal of a certain era. But this isn't quite as campy in the same way as 80s music was. The production values are much more modern. But the melodies and the lead guitar work itself, which is what distinguishes most of this music, is certainly centered on an 80s heavy metal feeling. It is much more sophisticated than you'd find in a simpler like Ghost song today. And there are plenty of bands in that style nowadays to where this will stand out in a very clear, classic heavy metal way, which I'd found enjoyable. I think that's the thing about this record is not very long, it's not very demanding of your time, and most of the songs are very straightforward. I think that when he touches most upon the sort of King Diamond, Merciful Fate side of things, it's most successful. And I think when they lean into a bit of keyboards and kind of slow it down for a little bit more of the heavy rock side, it mostly works. But I think for me, the heavy metal side of it works best and is most prominent and has the most personality. Now, most of these songs you might have already heard on the demo tape or the short EP they put out. These are new versions of those songs, which are uh, recorded in a similar way. So those seem more similar until you realize the vocals have changed quite a bit. He's added a lot more layers, a bit more expression, and this record has amped up the personality enough to constitute a full length with those songs on it. I'm interested to see where he goes with it, and maybe the album doesn't always feel as substantial as it might have for a debut, but it is a good starting point for me. So uh, There isn't much more to say about it. I think if you just heard the word "Merciful Fate," you'll be in the right mindset for this. This isn't a one-to-one comparison to make at all, but I would say that this is a great record. It's a catchy record. It's like a cool thing to pick up and enjoy if you're interested in something tuneful, just kind of catchy, good heavy metal that has some fantastic guitar playing. And I think the guitar playing showed kind of showed up secondary to the vocal melodies, the harmonies, and all that, which brings a bit of theater to the whole thing, which I enjoyed. So not a perfect debut, but certainly one that arrived fully fleshed out and with a very consistent voice within all the songs that they provide here. So definitely worth checking out. It's a moderately high recommendation for me. I think they can do much more in the future with this sound, and I like where they've started.